Imagine learning sales and marketing from working with incredible entrepreneurs like Tony Robbins and Joy from the movie Joy. If you haven't seen it, it's a must watch. Hi, I'm Jaryd Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and today I'm speaking with Martin Bispels, who is a marketing genius at heart, where he spent over 30 years in direct-to-consumer marketing and business development that's led to over $6 billion in sales and 2 business acquisitions for the previous company he worked for, QVC. Now he owns and operates his own e-commerce business, Upper Park Disc Golf, whilst still acting as a marketing consultant or CMO for various businesses. Now in this podcast episode, Martin and I talk about QVC, what QVC is, the business that he worked for so long, how Martin learned from some of the most influential people in marketing and sales, like I just mentioned, Tony Robbins, they had Joy from the movie Joy, and so many other people that just absolutely crushed it, learning so many things from building trust, relationships, selling, and marketing. Is so much in this conversation and so much in Martin's head. 6 billion in sales. He's learned a lot. Now, we also discuss, what he learned from some of the entrepreneurs themselves and then the people that he worked with in QVC. We talk about the type of marketing and sales he did. We also dive into how he got into acquiring companies for QVC and moved into the M&A space, got wined and dined through that. We also talk about why he then eventually went out on his own to start his own marketing consultancy firm for startups to help them scale. And he also acquired a business, and we talk about how he acquired that business making zero money with zero stock and got it to 7 figures in 18 months. Who's involved with that business, why, how, what that looks like. And we also discuss how many businesses he looked at before acquiring this one and what he learned through due diligence. And as you can imagine, I wanted to just keep talking to Martin because there's so much value in his head and there's so much value in this podcast episode. You guys are going to love it. I really enjoyed this chat and I'm sure you will too. Have you been lied to about how to increase organic traffic and grow your website? I too used to think that all you needed to do is add more content and gain backlinks. But this just doesn't work. More content and more links alone is not the answer. Nor do you need to butcher your website with generic SEO changes you picked up on some crummy online tutorial, leaving with a Frankenstein website that's slow and clunky. And because I got sick of seeing great people with great websites struggle to grow them, I decided to do something about it. I created an SEO service, which is not just about publishing content and getting links. Sure, we offer that. But first we give you quick wins, which are SEO tweaks we can make to your website that actually boost your rankings. And then we lay out a killer SEO strategy to acquire more traffic and revenue that outranks your competitors with less content and less links. We've thoroughly tested this service on many websites before launching it and have achieved incredible results, which you'll see on our landing page I'm about to share with you. Now you can finally buy a business and give it to us to grow it for you. To check out our SEO service, head to buyingonlinebusinesses.com/SEO-services and book a call to chat with us to see what is the best growth strategy for you and your website. That's buyingonlinebusinesses.com/SEO-services, and the link will be in the description too. Martin, firstly, thank you for your time and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jaryd. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat. I mean, you've got 3 decades of marketing and business experience that we need to tap into in one podcast.
We'll get it all in.
So first and foremost, did you start marketing for QVC, and who is and what is QVC?
Sure.
Yeah.
So QVC is like a home shopping channel here in the US, and they're also in 6 or so other countries. But I started my career right out of college in the TV studio at QVC. So like the live shopping kind of that you've seen in a lot of different versions. QVC happens to be the largest in the US. But I started there in 1992. Gosh, makes me old. With QVC in the studio, and then I worked my way up. I became a producer. I was Tony Robbins' producer anytime he would come to QVC. Really enjoyed that. I jumped over to sales, and then I ran sales at a time when we were merging all the channels, and then I ran business corporate development. And then I resigned at 14 to start my own consulting firm. So that's a bit of my QVC history. Fun place, really interesting because I got to work with so many different vendors, right? From Dell computers to beauty brands to electronics, and figuring out, how are we going to present these items on air, but then over time, online and through social and mobile, and really at a time when we were just kind of figuring all those things out, like everyone was for the first time.
So is this before so you were selling, were you guys selling on TV? You know how you used to have people on on stage and selling, and I mean I think that's still a thing, right? What
It's still a thing.
Yeah, what was that famous movie with where the woman entrepreneur, is it called Joy?
Yeah,
Yeah, very good.
yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was based on Joy Mangano, who came to QVC early on. She was one of many entrepreneurs that came to QVC with products and really developed a brand, and did very well. It was the kind of place that you could grow a business very, very quickly, because the amazing thing. This is back in the day, but I mean, the dollars per minute that you could generate. And that was the most important metric, by the way, is, when I was a producer, generating dollars per minute in sales. When you're doing 10 or $20,000 per minute in sales, I mean, the juice of that, plus the excitement of live TV, it was a fun place to be.
It definitely, like when you watch that movie, it definitely sounds like there was so much um money to be made, and also hype and fun, not just like when you're watching the TV, but the, I mean, even presenting for Joy, and then also like how it can change your life. Like there's so much, I mean, buzz around it, really, isn't it? Like, and I guess being back in that time, it's kind of like a, a video, the first video sales letter, really, isn't it? Like the first VSL, and so many people watching TV, like that's where everybody basically got most of their media from. And yeah, I just wanted like a shout out to that movie Joy. I think everybody listening should watch it. I've recommended people to watch it prior to this discussion with you, Martin, because it's such a inspirational movie to, as an entrepreneur, to watch. Right? It's like,
Yeah, it's very cool. It's funny. I haven't actually seen the movie. I feel like I lived it, so I don't see why I don't see have to watch the movie. But you're right. It was a fun place to be. The live TV environment, working with so many dynamic people, and you're right. I mean, now we consider shopping from home like that's not even you don't even talk about it because, of course, you can shop from home or you can shop from anywhere. But again, this is 1990s. When shopping from anywhere but a local store was like weird and different. And so we spent a lot of time actually building trust, which was, I learned a lot of valuable lessons about customer relationships and trust. There were some very smart people there that I was so fortunate to learn from. And then, as I rose through the ranks, that I, was able to teach, my teams, sort of the QVC way, and so many important lessons, that I learned along the way. And you're right, there were so many entrepreneurs that were so successful there. It was actually my favorite thing to do, to work with these inventors and entrepreneurs who just had a great product, right? And whether it was like the guy with the slanket, he took a blanket and cut holes in it, and all of a sudden he's a millionaire. It's like, what? You know, but so many great products. right, right. Yeah, the volume was crazy, and so I enjoyed that most of all. And I actually developed a program for entrepreneurs and inventors called QVC Sprouts, and it was all about helping these small companies get started and sort of nurturing them along the way, managing some of the risk for them. And I enjoyed that so much, I resigned in 2014. I said to my wife, I really enjoyed this whole time at QVC. It had been almost 20 years at that point. I said, but what I want to do is go out and be a startup consultant. And she said, all right. I said, are you sure? It's kind of risky. I'm leaving this kind of cushy executive gig. And she said, you'll figure it out. And so that's why I've been doing that for 10 years, in addition to now acquiring Upper Park and running that for 4 years as well.
yeah, congrats. I mean, there's so much to dig into. First, I just like, before we move into like your transition to consulting and then your acquisition, um, with QVC, I mean, I've been in marketing now for maybe 11, 12 years, in online business. And so I consider myself, I mean, in internet years, that's a veteran. But I always consider myself a baby and a student and green, and always want to learn more. But looking at, how QBC, um, sort of curated, I guess, the marketing scene, really, like you guys developed what online marketing is, or marketing through, not in person, through air. The distance shopping, yeah. I mean, it's the first sort of place to gain trust, um, without being in the presence of a human being and giving your credit card details over, right? Like, and to be able to do that, I mean, we still have a lot to learn from that. To be able to do that in a short period of time, where you are building so much trust, and then you've also got, what we always have in, what a lot of marketers now have in their marketing systems, like an SLO, self-liquidating offer, and order bumps, upsells, downsells, and stacking the sale with, like, you can get this and we'll chuck in the steak knives, and we'll chuck in this and we'll throw in that if you buy it now, and like the scarcity of it, like, wow. I mean, what would you say, like, some of the, I mean, it's going to be so hard to compress 20 years of working with QVC. But what, over out of like marketing, what would you say, like, are some of the top two sort of things that you've really brought across and carried with you into consulting and into your, the business that you've acquired? What are those, like, maybe one or two massive ahas, or, principles?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I'd say one of them is, we always looked at it like it's not about, how do we sell more? How do we sell harder? We actually kind of, pulled against that and would coach on air talent away from that, right? And so we had this approach called the backyard fence, right? And my boss, Jack, actually invented it. And then, we all sort of, adopted it and taught it to not only our staff, but then all of the vendors, the thousands of vendors that would come in to go on air. And so the approach was very much, let's have an honest conversation. Let's highlight the features and benefits of a product based on genuine enthusiasm, as if you were talking to your neighbor over the backyard fence, right? As if, like, when you see a movie and you really, like you were just talking about, you enjoy that movie, you want other people to experience it. That was sort of the energy and the vibe that we would try to, bring alive, literally on live TV, right? And so that's a very different approach from just get out there and sell harder and be the pitch man, and talk about the value and the price and there's only two left and all that nonsense. We actually pushed it back against that quite a bit. And because two reasons: one, it was more honest, but two, it worked better. Building a real relationship. Everybody talks about the relationship with the customer. When you have people calling up live on air and talking to you about how they have this product and you know this is what they love about it, that's an honest conversation, right? And it was also funny. It was one of the hardest things for new hosts, the QVC hosts, to learn. Was when you have a caller that's telling you how great the product is, stop talking
Yeah,
and let them talk.
they sell it themselves, won't they? Sell it to themselves. Yeah. Um, and
Yeah,
that's a, that's still an authentic thing to do, is to have you sell yourself something. I mean, for me as well in my own life, like, I am so heavily on, like, that, sell myself out of something, because of, what I do for work and risk, is I typically sell myself out of things. And it can be valuable to sell yourself into something if it's right for you, and it can change, how you clean your house, or whatever, you're trying to do. I think that's a great example of really showcasing passion and authenticity for a product that you have either created or that you're selling. I remember when I was living in Egypt back in 2012, I was working as a dive master, scuba diving, taking people diving every day. And I was just working as a freelancer for for a friend. Basically, he was my teacher, scuba diving teacher, who helped me become a dive master and become a really good diver. And he was very well known in the area. And he said to me, Jaryd, if you just want more work, you just need to sell more. You just need to get people diving more. And I said, oh, I don't know how to sell, like, people to go scuba diving. He's like, you don't need to. I said, what do you mean? He goes, all you need to do is talk to them about what you love, which is scuba diving. And he's like, just by hearing you talk about how much you love diving, and he's been diving for like 20 years, he's like, it just makes me want to go diving. So just share your passion for diving, and people are gonna want to come scuba diving with you. Um, and it's so authentic, right? It's just like it's basically just sharing the love.
Yeah, and it's much more natural. You can just tell when somebody's faking it, right? And when they're trying to sell you something, everybody has that detector in their mind, right? When you're like, all right, the guy's just trying to sell, which is why, infomercials and the cheesy late night stuff still works, but it's just it's not how I want to do business, first of all. But I also think that building that relationship and letting the customer speak for you is far more effective.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, talking about acquisitions, you helped to QVC acquire two businesses as well, right? What sort of how did that, like, what was your place in that? How did that work? What were those businesses, and why did they acquire them?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a great question. So it's funny. I had led sales, for all the divisions and all the platforms, and then I was getting a little itchy, and the CEO knew it. So she said, "All right, we have this new role for you. We're going to call it business development, but it's basically the mandate was figure out new ways to make QVC money." All right, cool. And so I developed this whole program called Q Spokes, and the idea was that we would have, there's the hub of the business, and we're going to do things that are spokes, right? They're related to the hub, but they're, different enough to be kind of their own thing as well, right? So, we weren't going to get into two things that were too far afield, like, space travel or something, right? But but I had license to explore, right? And sort of think about, the art of the possible. And so, I started thinking, well, gee, can we sell services instead of physical products? Okay. And so we did. We sold subscriptions and membership offerings of different brands, travel offerings, for example. And that was a different way, right? A new way to make money. And then, you know, the conversation around M&A, it occurred to me that, well, gee, we have a lot of cash, and there's a lot of great companies out there, really very basic, right? I wonder if we could do mergers and acquisitions. And so, my leadership team, God bless them, was supportive. And all of a sudden, I'm on Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley doing the tour and, being schmoozed by all the VCs and thrust into that whole world. I remember my first trip out there, visited all the VCs, got invited to some startup mixer, and all of a sudden I'm at this like dive bar with a 16-ounce Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. I'm like, what am I back in high school? This is bizarre. uh, well, and so, getting into that world and seeing sort of, okay, there are all these great companies and ideas. And so what I ended up doing was, as you said, leading two acquisitions for QVC. They were essentially acqui-hires, right? We wanted to bring in new talent and new ideas. And so one out of Silicon Valley, one out of New York. And I learned an awful lot, right? Not only the deal structure and all of that, but also thinking about, okay, well, how do we integrate these capabilities, these skills, these new attitudes and perspectives into the core business, right? To evolve the core business. And so that was really very interesting, and the integration of all of that as well. So I learned an awful lot. Met some great people, worked with some wonderful people. And so, really enjoyed that as one of the things that I did in that role. So, one was a social commerce business that had kind of built an API on top of Facebook. And remember back, this is 2000, 12 or so, when everybody's thinking, social commerce, what is that? How do we do this? How do we have social not just be like weird stuff on Facebook, but actually driving business and sales? And how do we convert that? And how do we present it in a social channel? And so that was one. And then the other one was a subscription business. Remember, subscription businesses were real hot. You could put anything in a box, a monthly, and all of a sudden everybody wanted it, right? So, uh, and in both cases, they were led by really smart people, who were forward thinking and entrepreneurial themselves. And so again, we wanted to sort of infuse that kind of talent and perspective into QVC's culture, which QVC is great, but it's in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Not the center of the universe of innovation. Lovely place. I live here, but it's not what you would think of as cutting edge, right? And so to bring in these kinds of new skills and attitudes and thought processes, was a healthy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, M&A is such a great way to grow a business. You're just acquiring businesses that you're already using or is going to help you grow your business. It's just the ROI from it is insane when you do it very strategically, And I even think about like if QVC, like back in the day, working with so many talented people, so I should say talented entrepreneurs that had just such great products and they came to you guys and pitched their products and you guys were like, damn, this is good. The opportunity for you guys to, instead of just put them on, create a marketing system for them, and put them on stage, the opportunity to acquire those, like, and QVC, like, I mean, this is how business is done, but create a monopoly on those products. It's like that would have been a massive opportunity for QVC if you know, I mean, if you had or somebody in the company had that M&A mindset back then, I guess, like you were probably too deep in the marketing weeds to think that was a strategy until you got to like,
Oh no, I thought of it.
okay,
I thought a lot about it.
yeah,
But it was also a matter of sort of I knew what I was doing with those the first acquisitions QVC had ever done. I knew what I was doing was sort of building the muscle, that the company needed, and sort of it changes the culture. There's a lot of things, right? When you do that, and so it was very new for people at QVC to be able to do that. And anyway, so I was proud that I was able to help build sort of the M&A muscle. And of course, later they went on to acquire Zulily. I didn't have anything to do with that, but I think that it was it partly laid the groundwork for other acquisitions, which is, as you say, a wonderful way to grow the business. And anytime you're looking to grow, do you build, buy, or partner, right? And any of them can be great, but sometimes the buy is the fastest route and the best based on cost and benefit and so forth.
yeah, yeah, can be the least risky as well. Um, so with you moved 2014, also 2014, sorry, you moved into doing your own consulting. What sort of marketing were you helping with the tech startups? Like, was there a specific type of marketing, or yeah, how did you guys, how did you start helping tech startups?
So a lot of it translated to again, this program that I developed, I enjoyed that the most out of everything I had done at QVC, and working with these companies and helping them nurture them along. I did a deal with the Today Show to have five of them featured on the Today Show, and those kinds of. I really enjoyed that, and so when I resigned and started my own consulting firm, it was to work with these small businesses directly, and to help them with based on my experience. And so typically they were CPG businesses, right, consumer product businesses that either in the beginning I worked with folks that were really early stage, like ideas on a napkin, right, and and oh great, I got equity, okay, you know that's wonderful, but
It's not
they
paying
didn't
the
have
bills yet.
anything else that
Yeah.
they. No, exactly, and they didn't have anything they needed to really be able to grow,
Mm,
right, and get from 0 to 1. So I learned along the way. Okay, now maybe you work with, instead of ideas on a napkin, you work with folks that are have some funding, whether it's just a rich uncle or VCs or whatever, and then also lower middle market companies, right? Tons of businesses. Again, this is 2014, 15, 16, where so many businesses were just starting to figure out how do we sell online. There was a direct selling business, a children's clothing company, great business. The old Avon model, where you sell in living rooms, uh, terrific. But they really didn't know what they were doing online, so I worked with them closely, and instead of trying to compete with their direct selling business, actually complemented by recruiting online for more of their direct selling staff. And so it was a nice way to sort of complement what they did, help grow the business, but still do something that was new and that they didn't know how to do. Right. So, those were some early successes. And I've worked with all kinds of different businesses, software businesses. I tend to attract the eccentric entrepreneur type. And so, yeah, they can be, right? And it's funny because I worked with so many big personalities while I was at QVC, celebrities and, very, very wealthy people that, sometimes thought they had all the answers or had been doing it so long that and I love working with those kinds of folks, right? Because they're dynamic, they're passionate as hell. Um, and ready for anything, and quick moving, right? Excited and passionate, let's do it, and so you have to manage that, right? All of a sudden you're zooming off in a different direction that doesn't make sense. So in some cases I would be, instead of their CMO, I'd be their COO, right? And sort of just keeping the the place in order, and making sure that they were growing in a sustainable way. And so now I've sort of blended the two. I consider myself like an operational CMO, where marketing is fraught with big ideas and terrible execution, right? And so having an operating system, I actually use EOS. You've probably heard of the Entrepreneur Operating System, based on a book called Traction, very helpful. And so I've implemented that with all of my consulting clients and my own business as well, to make sure that things are, you know, I'm a big believer in people, and I believe that people can achieve anything, really anything. Look at history. But we have to all be rowing in the same direction, right? And so often, I just met with a potential client, and they have a nice business, but one of the opportunities is just to get everybody on the same page, working together. And if we do that, we'll be that much more successful.
One goal, one direction, and create your mission and your marketing and your systems around that. And you can just, when you do create those, I'm with you on marketing. You can take the marketing and just make an operational system, and then like have different ideas that leapfrog the original ones based on the tests that you do in your marketing that outperform the original ones. You let those leapfrog and then embed them back into the system in a way that is more optimized and can serve your audience better with better products and better marketing. So I'm big on that for sure. Yeah. Thank you. And so you bought a business as well. So are you still consulting, and why did you acquire a business? I'm so excited to talk about this part. Yeah.
Sure. So this is September of 2020, right? We're 6 months into COVID, and I'm here in my barn, my creative space here that you see in the background. And I said to my now business partner, Jim, he was a guy that I had met through networking, and we really liked each other. He's a partner at a large investment firm and great day job. He's been there 30 years. But we talked about doing something entrepreneurial together. And so I said to him, Jim, why don't we uh, go find a business and acquire it? I'll run it day to day. I'll do the blood, sweat, and tears part. And and Jim brought the cash, right? And so that made a lot of sense. It was great. It is a great partnership, and so we went off looking for something because I thought, like everyone with COVID, I sort of thought about, well, gee, okay, when the world turns back on again, do I want to keep doing what I've been doing, or do I want to do something different? And I thought, well, I had this crazy idea that buying and running a business would be, really fun and super rewarding, and sometimes it is. Most of the time it is, I would say. Yeah, but it certainly kind of has its challenges, as you know. And so, anyway, Jim and I were game, so we set off in earnest to find and acquire a business, built some objective criteria, and use some of that M&A knowledge that I'd gained back from doing those previous acquisitions, and ended up finding a business on Flippa, the marketplace, based also in Australia there, and found a great business. I was excited about it. for not only because I happen to have played disc golf for 30 years, but also, it met all of our objective criteria, right? About the kinds of business, the kind of business we wanted to acquire, and what we thought was happening in the market, trends and so forth. Remember, you were looking. This is an outdoor sport. If you don't know disc golf, you throw these discs at these things that look like metal baskets. But disc golf is one of those things that like either people are way into and they're very familiar, or they're like, "What the hell is this thing?" Right? And so it's great. Yeah, really fun. And so, anything outdoors, right? This is 2020. Anything outdoors was just booming, right? You couldn't ride a bicycle because they were all sold out, right? And so, hopping on a trend, certainly in an industry that was, growing fast, was one of the reasons that we acquired the business. So anyway, we acquired the business in 2020, and I actually kept John, the original owner, in the business because he had great knowledge and contacts and so forth, and so I kept him in as an equity partner. No, really, as an equity partner and somebody that I could tap, for contacts and questions about the business, and he is a really good guy, and so I wanted to keep him in the business, and he was thrilled because, like many people who have grown in business, this was sort of his baby, right? And he didn't want to just walk away, and so we worked something out where he could stay involved. I was just literally on Slack with him today, and tap his expertise all the time when it comes to, So I asked him. I said, "Well, what do you enjoy doing, and what do you not enjoy doing?" And he said, "Product development. I just want to keep making the products better and better." Okay, great. What do you want to not do? And probably not surprisingly, it was the supply chain and some of the customer support and the stuff that can be tough. And so I said, great.
Yeah, I just want to like highlight what you said there. That is such a good question for people to not just ask your staff to make sure like they're happy and you know love doing what they're doing, and not just be happy, but when you're happy, you do better work, more productive. But also to ask yourself as well when you're in business. And sometimes it's different stages. Sometimes you need to wear all the hats until you get past the thick of it, and then you can hire somebody to do the things that you don't want to do. I've hired people that do things that I just do not like, but they love. You know, so it's such a huge win. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, what sort of percentage are you cool talking about percentages of like what equity split between you guys and what that looks like?
Oh, so Jim and I split up most of it, and then I kept John in for a smaller piece, but meaningful, meaning that he's incentivized to help grow it. But exactly as you say, in EOS there's this concept of right people, right seats, and so this idea of having exactly as you say, some people love customer support and supply chain and product development and or the e-commerce marketing, or finding the right people and giving them the right accountabilities is crucial. And so I have a small team, including John focuses on product development. I have a great developer up in Boston. They're all over the world, um, and putting people in the right seats and then holding them accountable to deliver on their accountabilities is the key, right? I also, in that same vein, one of the things I've learned and really focus on is I have actually on my calendar every morning. The first thing on my calendar every day is a question, which is, what can only I do? And it's a reminder every morning to focus on the things that I'm best suited for, right? It's not an ego thing. It's like, oh, look at me. No, no, no. It's I have a team, right? They're really good at what they do, right? And all of their individual skills. So it forces me to sort of make sure that they're doing those things instead of me jumping in, right? I can build Google ads. I know how to build meta ads, but they're better at it. So I want to make sure that I force myself to let them do that, right? Um, and then I focus on the things that make more sense for an owner or CEO to focus on. Building bigger relationships, partnerships, exploring new product categories, those kinds of things. Seeking investors, that kind of thing. And so forcing myself to have that discipline has been very, very, useful.
I love that question. Such a good question. So I got a few questions in my head to ask. But firstly, you mentioned investors. Are you still looking for invest? I'm not saying that I'm looking to invest, but like, do you still take on investors? And what does that look like for you guys?
So we have not. I've had a couple of feelers out there. It's really, I look at it as like it's an opportunistic situation. If I find the right investor, I'm not just looking for money. I can get money lots of places, right? Um, you get emails every day. Term loans and this kind of stuff. That honestly, that raising capital is not that hard, as long as you have a decent business and you're cooking along. Um, I would say the investor situation right now is opportunistic. If I found the right person who really brought a lot of value, whether it's insights and expertise or services, those kinds of things would be interesting to me as far as adding an investor. Jim and I are very open to it, but we're not in a rush, and we certainly don't want to just, you don't want to make the mistake of adding the wrong partner, right? So yeah, so I have conversations, and when people are interested, I'll have a good conversation. But we may find the right person, and if not, we'll just keep cooking along because we're doing well.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to hear you doing well. I'm going to ask about that soon. Now, you've got a lot of experience in business and marketing. So I dare say that you might not have looked at a bunch of DDs, because I know that when people first start in acquiring an online business that have never been in online business, typically they look at a lot of businesses and do a lot of due diligence on businesses before acquiring. And they sort of need to, because they need to learn, understand business, understand the market at the same time before they buy their first acquisition. So it's definitely worth them doing DD on a lot of businesses. How many businesses did you guys look at and do DD on before you acquired this one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say about 20. Um, yeah, and I was sort of rapid fire diligence. If I got to the point where I saw, okay, this just doesn't make sense, then I'm a big believer in. This is true in sales too. A fast yes is better than a slow maybe, right? You know, when you're trying to sell something and you have a customer who's hemming and hawing, and you'd rather just have them say, "Look, I'm not interested." Fine, I can move on to the next, right? So I tried to be fair. I always try to be fair when I'm working with partners, and and just be upfront and honest, right? Don't string them along. If it's not a fit, and so that was certainly the case here. We looked at 20 some businesses, and if it just wasn't a fit, I was honest with them. I told them why, and they appreciated that. Honest feedback is a very valuable thing. And too rare. So we did our diligence. And then when we found a few that made sense, there I'd say there were maybe five. We went deep and really sussed it out, and looked under the covers. And you can tell so much by looking at analytics, and part of it is just having the right conversation, and getting a feel for the people. In this case, John, great guy. I really liked him. Entrepreneurial, had been successful at other things he'd done, had the right sort of DNA. And so I knew that he was somebody that, we knew the business was the right fit, but also a guy that, I wanted to keep in the business because I liked his approach, and, shared a lot of the same values, and it's been a great relationship.
Such a big part of an acquisition is having a good relationship with the buyer or the seller, and there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot to be said for that in acquisition, and I think it's very important for that chemistry to be there, versus like it not, because it can end up, I believe anyway. So there's some people who just come in as like buy and just not care and just like change the team and do all that sort of stuff. But I think ethically it's like a really nice and important thing to have, right? What a you know what
Yeah, and if you're an aggregator, if you're an aggregator just scooping up companies, well, then maybe you don't care as much,
correct.
right? So,
Yeah.
but in this case, it certainly mattered.
What would be maybe one of the two biggest things you learned through doing DD or looking at 20 businesses, and even through acquiring this one? What are the two big aha DD lessons that you could share with our folk?
Sticking to the criteria and being disciplined about it. The reason we developed that was to be disciplined and excuse me, to be disciplined about it because it's really easy to get excited, right? The shiny object syndrome, right, that everybody talks about. And oh my gosh, what a fun business, and you get geeked up about it. Or maybe the person selling it has a lot of great energy and passion, and that's great, but you really have to be smart and disciplined around, does it meet all, come back to the criteria. That's why we developed those criteria first, right? We didn't just go off looking for a business. Here are the criteria. We agree on these. Okay, great. Now let's go look and see which ones fit, right? So that kind of approach from the start was very valuable. And then otherwise, I would say just really leveraging the tools that you have and the data. And there's so much data available now. You can dig in. Um, so that's just being extremely focused on the right things and spending the right amount of time. And it's interesting in a virtual world. I've never met John face to face. And here we are. We've acquired the business. We're still working together 4 years later, and but it's also kind of an amazing thing, right? I can run this business from my barn and and sell worldwide. It still blows me away, and I'm very grateful every day that we can do this.
That's a great that's a great attitude. I love that. Like the gratitude towards how you can do business today is just it is amazing. It's really amazing. And I mean, it's obviously it's hard. I mean, you've come so far, in your years of experience and how business has changed and the world has changed and the gratitude that you can have for it, I'd guess, is probably far more immense than somebody that was born in the 90s or the 2000s. Somebody that was born in 2000, they're 24 years old and they're in an online business. They've always had Facebook. Or like always had a phone, or something in front of them in terms of the internet,
Well,
right?
it's funny, because I have three kids, and so you sort of try to instill some of those values. But people are people, and whether it's the 1920s or the 2020s, there's still some I think common traits and things that are important, right? And so of course my kids grew up with phones and social media and all of that, and I just try to instill in them, look, the importance of networking, right? Building relationships with people is absolutely critical. And sure, the ways that you do that are different now than when it was, 50 years ago, but it's still extremely valuable. And they both have really adopted that attitude and been very successful because of it. They're both out of college and doing great. And, one of the really reasons that they are is because they know how to talk to people.
It's That's so cool. I love that you're able to share that with your kids, and they're just crushing it. Now, talking about crushing it and doing well, you mentioned your business is doing well. Um, People love to hear numbers. If you're open to sharing numbers of like what you bought it for and then what it's doing now or whatnot, like, um, yeah, tell us how's it going since acquiring. What are
Yeah.
some
So
things you've done?
overall,
And yeah,
yeah. So yeah, sort of the journey of the last 4 years or so, when we first bought the business, there was zero inventory and zero sales, right? Um, it's just where the business was. So the first thing was get back in stock. But also, we rebranded. And the company was called Upper Park Designs. And I thought, well, that's interesting, but it kind of sounds like an architectural firm. So we're going to call it what it is, Upper Park Disc Golf. And so, being very clear about who we are and also making a commitment to the sport, right? Back to some of the conversation earlier about, relating to the customer. And so, first thing was just get back in stock, right? And, there was some existing supplier relationships and so forth that we leveraged. And then getting operational, the rebrand and the relaunch. One of the reasons we had acquired the business was, there was so much goodwill in the brand, right? There were a lot of great reviews, product reviews, um, that I knew that the customers were out there for this product, um, and they loved what John had done. John was a real disc golfer. He develop these products, these bags uh, that carry your discs, because he's a disc golfer and he just thought of great ideas for the kinds of bags that people would want. And so, a lot of businesses, have this kind of positioning where they talk about, buy disc golfers for disc golfers, right? And so that kind of customer centric and disc golf approach, right, focusing on the product and being a user as well as the seller, uh, was really important. And so we leveraged that, we enhanced it with the brand relaunch by instilling things like core values. And so, one of the things I really like is being transparent with the customer about what we stand for. So one of our core values is right here on this disc. Be a good human. And so this is all about treating people equally and celebrating diversity, right? And especially in an outdoor sport, people love that vibe, and the disc golf community is amazing. And so celebrating that with people. And another one of them is enjoy the ride, right? We're not solving the world's biggest problems, right? We're not building nuclear reactors. We're playing disc golf, right? And we're celebrating this great sport that we love, right? And so, instilling those kinds of core values and sharing them with the customer are really important. Um, and then as far as sales, we went from 0 to 1 million gross sales in 18 months. And yeah, and we did that by all the things I just mentioned, and really listening to the customer and constantly seeking feedback, finding the right promotional opportunities, uh, sponsoring events and things that made sense in the beginning to sort of reestablish the brand and get it out there. Um, but over the last 4 years, the sales have continued to grow, but also the methods. I've changed methods quite a bit. Um, both the operational side and also the marketing side. On the operations side, the biggest thing is the 3PL, third party warehouse logistics. Um, I've worked with some of the biggest national brands. They've been terrible. you know, 3PLs that can tout themselves as e-commerce experts aren't. You know, right? You're forced into their systems. The hidden costs are immense. You don't find out about things until later. It's just there's really a terrible. So finding the right 3PL solution, which we now have, we've had for a while now, very very important. And again, it's right about the right fit, right? The right people doing the right thing and operating and communicating the right way for your particular business, right? Those businesses, the ship bobs of the world, are probably great for some, but they weren't a great fit for us, right? So finding those kinds of things, those operational things, has been super important. Um, and then the marketing, it's e-commerce, right? So there's a million possibilities, a million opportunities. Google is always changing, and you have to adapt. Um, and then seeking new ways to relate to the customer. One of the most recent examples is, it occurred to me that disc golf, like a lot of other places, there's a lot of experts, right? They'll teach you how to throw a disc or how to play. And I thought, well, that's fine. And there's a lot of that out there. But what about the human side? And so, how do I find people to play with? Which courses should I play when I'm just starting out? All of those kinds of things. How do you manage your emotions when you're playing? And so I thought, okay, well, instead of me just writing up what I think, why don't we survey our customers? And so we did. And we had a survey. We asked 20 some questions. We put all of that into a guide that, again, back to our core value, uh, we call this the Good Humans Guide to Disc Golf. And so we sort of crowdsourced this idea of, and we have all these great answers from all of our customers answering these questions about, just what I said, clothes and how to find people to play with, all those things. And so now it's a guide and a resource for the new disc golfer who's coming in to learn and grow. And so that feels really good. And, we give it away for free on our website, of course. And of course, the advantage for us is it's an SEO magnet, right? We have all this great
Absolutely.
content
Lead
now.
magnet, SEO, backlinks, all the things.
Sure.
Yeah, it's great.
Right. but it's also a service to
It's
the
just
disc golf
that's well,
community,
that's
which
what it's all. That's
we
the best business, right? Is you do it to serve, and because it is there to serve, then you get rewarded with other people linking to it, traffic coming to it because it's valuable, people wanting to download it. Like the service and the asset and the value comes first, obviously.
yes, that's exactly right. And so, and then back to that, just like we talked about with QVC, earning that trust, building that relationship, not just selling stuff to sell stuff. Anybody can sell stuff, you know. We want to do more than that.
Yeah, it's like my lead magnet I give away, and I'm just putting this in here intentionally for people listening. If you haven't got it, we're talking about buying businesses here. It's my due diligence framework, and it's what I use. It's what a lot of us use in the community to take the guesswork out of buying a business. And it's value first. And if you want it, go away and get it free. If you don't want it, it's totally fine, right? And we get it's sort of made a massive impact where a lot of people in the space now have started creating the same resource spin-offs based on ours being first, which probably happened for you, and this might happen for you in disc golf, and then you can zig and zag and change and create more assets as you go along. Now, when you acquired this, you said there was zero stock and zero sales. How did you value the business? And if you're open to sharing the acquisition price, people would love that. But it's totally up to you. But like, how first and foremost, how did you acquire it?
Yeah. So, the valuation was really, I learned when I was first doing M&A, you learn that a business is worth what you're willing to pay for it, right? Just like any object or art or anything else, right? And so, uh, you know, yeah, and you can talk about, valuation multiples and so forth and trends, and that's fine. Um, but to your point, with zero inventory, zero sales, I had to look at it and say, okay, let's look at the history, right? And what, the best years it's had, at XYZ. And you can look at that. And then you look at, okay, the market size, the market growth, um, what you're actually getting, right? What are the actual assets that you're acquiring, email lists and so forth. Um, and so, the negotiation was pretty straightforward. We made it what I thought was a very fair offer, and it included right from the beginning this idea of John joining us as an equity partner. So not only was he going to get some cash, but also to join us, and continue on the journey, and really get some people call it a second bite at the apple, right? He's going to go for this ride with us, and then eventually we'll sell. Someday I don't live forever, and so he'll benefit from that as well. And so he was thrilled to be part of that, happy with the offer we made, and again, I think it was a better start than just saying, "Here's some cash, see you later." We don't share the acquisition price, but he's very happy, and I think we're going to be even happier at some point when we exit. But I'm not.
And is that initially that? I mean, not initially. Is that eventually going to happen? Is that like what you talked about with Jim and with John?
Yeah, I think just like we talk about with investors, it's sort of opportunistic, right? That we're doing well, we're stable, we're profitable, I'm having a lot of fun running the business, and so that's a good thing. I do it from my barn, and so there is this, you sometimes look at these things as a lifestyle business, right? You say, well, you just enjoy running the business, so you just want to keep doing it. And the other approach is become a serial entrepreneur, right? Buy a business, build it up, sell it, go on to the next. Um, at this point, I'm really enjoying it, and I want to keep doing it.
Well, you're living your
I
ethos,
do,
aren't you? Enjoying the ride, and just keep enjoying the ride until you don't, and then you can sell it and do something different.
yeah, right. I enjoy, and honestly, the consulting side, I only take on one or two clients at a time.
Mm.
I'm not trying to build an agency or have 10 clients or anything like that. When I work with people, I work really closely with them. I become their CMO. I'm embedded in their team. I really care about growing their business. And so, doing that actually is a wonderful way to sort of balance and keep perspective on Upper Park, right? Because I can do these things and it gives me sort of a mental break. And then I can come back and have a little bit, like anything, if you get too close to it, you can sort of lose yourself in the weeds, you know. And so I consult partly to just kind of keep that perspective.
I love that. And yeah, you can look at it from different angles as well. Still, you've got a bit of distance from it, like you said.
Yeah, and you learn all the time, right? You know, by doing other things, you learn constantly, you know, different approaches. And again, it's marketing. And then, you know, you can transfer things. The Good Humans Guide can transfer to other industries and other businesses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Martin, wow, congrats on what you've done and what you continue to do. It's very inspirational for people listening. So, and we thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much, Jaryd. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I really am open to helping people. I give a lot of free advice, and you know, so reach out anytime. I'm
Where
happy
can
to
we have
connect with
people
folks.
reach out?
You know, LinkedIn is the easiest way, honestly. And if you just send me a note and say, "Hey, I saw you on Jaryd's podcast," I really appreciate when people send me LinkedIn invites with some kind of context, right? I don't accept if you just send me a random LinkedIn invite and I have no idea who you are. I don't know what you want. You know, I'm thinking you're probably just trying to sell me something. I just ignore it.
Yeah,
But if you send me a note, hey, I saw you on Jaryd's podcast. Okay, then I'm open to a conversation. You know, again, it's you build a relationship
relationship
that way.
first. Correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Love it, Martin. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you've done in the space and continue to do. And yeah, looking forward to chatting again in the future.
Me too. Thank you.
Hey YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.